Welcome back to the Forbidden Files, Echoes and Evidence of the Truth, the podcast where shadowed truths come into the light and classified secrets refuse to stay buried. I'm Lena Vale, and tonight, we crack open a file that the U.S. government tried to keep closed for decades. On paper, it was a scientific mission, but behind the scenes, it was misinformation, it was censorship, it was control. This is Project Blue Book. What did they really find? It's 1952. The Cold War is in full swing. Americans glance nervously to the sky, not just for Soviet bombers, but for something else, something they couldn't name. That year, the U.S. Air Force launched a program meant to calm the storm, Project Blue Book. It was the third in a series of UFO investigations, following Project Sign and Project Grudge. Blue Book's official purpose? To determine if UFOs posed a threat to national security, unofficially. To manage the public narrative and bury anything that didn't fit, because behind the PR-friendly statements and bureaucratic reports was a government scrambling to explain and contain what it couldn't control. Between 1952 and 1969, Project Blue Book investigated 12,618 UFO sightings. Of those, 701 remain officially unexplained. But let's not forget, those are just the ones they admitted to. Most reports were chalked up to Venus, weather balloons, or the always convenient swamp gas, but a few just didn't fit. Let me tell you about Incident 857, one of the strangest on record. Incident 857, the mine at AFB encounter, October 24th, 1968. Mine at Air Force Base, North Dakota. Military personnel guarding a nuclear missile site saw something they couldn't explain. A glowing, silent object hovering in the sky. It was caught on radar. It was seen by pilots. It was confirmed by ground control. But when the footage was reviewed, it had vanished. The official Blue Book conclusion? Stellar mirage. But the pilots who were there still say otherwise. Some of them refuse to talk about it even now. And when silence lasts this long, you have to ask, what's keeping them quiet? Here's the thing. Project Blue Book wasn't just about UFOs. It was about belief. Internal CIA documents from the 1950s describe debunking strategies meant to neutralize public interest in aerial phenomena, media manipulation, psychological conditioning, discrediting witnesses. You weren't just wrong for believing in UFOs. You were crazy, drunk, un-American. It wasn't just about what people saw. It was about who they'd believe. And spoiler alert, it wasn't the witnesses. In 1969, Project Blue Book was officially shut down. Their conclusion: no UFO investigated has ever been a threat to national security. Neat, clean, reassuring. But here's the catch. Just months later, the Pentagon quietly launched a new, even more secretive program, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP. We didn't find out about AATIP until 2017, so if Project Blue Book ended, why did the investigations continue? Because maybe they didn't like what they found. Okay, let's rewind. Not to 1947, not even 1900. Let's go to 1803. In a small Japanese village, dozens of locals claimed to see a strange craft wash ashore, a hollow metal sphere with windows and inscriptions in an unknown language. Ancient scrolls document the event. Paintings of the object still hang in museums today. They called it the Otsurobune, or hollow ship. So here's your WTF moment of the week. If that wasn't an alien spacecraft, what the hell was it? One of the most public and undeniable incidents in Blue Book's history, the Washington, D.C. UFO flap of 1952. It's July. The capital is baking in summer heat, but it's not the temperature that has government officials sweating. Over several nights, radar operators at Washington National Airport and Andrews Air Force Base pick up unidentified flying objects, fast, erratic, and moving in ways no known aircraft could. Jet fighters are scrambled. By the time they arrive, the objects disappear, only to return when the jets leave. The CIA is alarmed. They fear mass panic. President Truman is briefed. And guess what? That event leads directly to the creation of the Robertson Panel, a scientific advisory group designed to debunk UFO sightings. This was a turning point. From that moment forward, the official response to UFOs became clear. Don't investigate. Invalidate. There's one man who tried to keep the science honest. Dr. J. Allen Hynek. You might know him now as the guy who created the close encounter classification system, but back then, he was Project Blue Book's scientific advisor. He started as a skeptic, but what he saw changed him. He admitted, publicly, that Blue Book wasn't allowed to truly investigate. Instead, they were pressured to explain away everything. No matter how wild the report, no matter how credible the witnesses, I was part of the deception, he later said. But I didn't realize it at the time. Hynek's honesty cost him favor in government circles, but to believers, he became a quiet hero. Now, this is where things get personal. I got my hands on a redacted transcript of a retired airman's statement, one that never made it into any official Blue Book file. For safety, we're calling him Airman X. He was stationed at a base in California in 1964. One night, while working the radar tower, he tracked what he described as an object the size of a bus hovering at 40,000 feet. No sound, no transponder. Moved sideways at speeds we couldn't clock. He reported it. The next day, men in plainclothes arrived on base. Not Air Force, not CIA. He never got their names. They took the tapes, told him not to talk. The report was classified and never seen again. When Project Blue Book shut down, many believed the story ended. But then came the Bolender Memo, released through the Freedom of Information Act. This 1969 Air Force memo stated, plainly, that reports of UFOs which could affect national security are not part of the Blue Book system. Translation: Blue Book was never meant to handle the dangerous stuff. Those cases were quietly sent elsewhere, into black-budget programs the public would never hear about. So the real question is, where did they go? Project Blue Book didn't just influence military policy. It shaped the way we see aliens in pop culture. TV shows like The X-Files, Twin Peaks, and Project UFO took direct inspiration from the cases Blue Book buried. Even the Department of Defense admitted, on record, that they used the media as a distraction tool. In fact, Walt Disney Studios was reportedly contacted by government agencies to produce a UFO-friendly documentary. But when the project started asking too many questions, it was shut down. So ask yourself, how much of what we think is fiction was actually based on fact? Let's get nerdy for a second. Project Blue Book commissioned the Battelle Memorial Institute to statistically analyze over 3,200 UFO cases. The result was a monster document known as Special Report Number 14. Here's what it found. 22% of cases were completely unexplained. The better the data and witness quality, the less likely the case was explainable. Analysts found clear statistical differences between known objects and true unknowns, but the Air Force told the public that only 3% of sightings were unexplained. They downplayed the real numbers. Why? Because 22%. That's not a fluke. That's a pattern. Ever wonder why your uncle swears he saw a flying saucer, but everyone calls him crazy? That's by design. The Robertson panel explicitly instructed the government to mock witnesses, ridicule believers, use celebrities and scientists to create rational explanations. They even suggested producing cartoons to influence public perception. It was one of the first large-scale disinformation campaigns in U.S. history. The weapon wasn't lasers or tech, it was doubt. One of Blue Book's most infamous missteps happened in 1966. 2 Ohio police officers chased a glowing object across multiple counties. They reported the incident, gave full statements, even had radio logs. Blue Book's conclusion: they saw Venus, except Venus doesn't fly across 3 counties at treetop level. The officers were humiliated. One left the force, another became a recluse, and Blue Book never apologized. Here's what we know. Project Blue Book may have been shut down, but the questions never stopped. And the deeper you dig, the clearer the pattern becomes. The sightings, the denials, the sudden disappearances of footage, files, and people. So ask yourself, what did they find that made them shut it all down? Project Blue Book was a lie wrapped in paperwork. It wasn't about finding answers. It was about burying them. From ancient scrolls to radar blips to missing tapes, the truth is out there. It always has been. The only real question is, why don't they want us to see it? This has been the Forbidden Files, echoes and evidence of the truth. If this episode lit a fire in your mind, hit follow, leave a review, and share it with someone who still believes that truth matters. Got your own theory? A sighting, a classified file hiding in plain sight. Drop a comment until next time. Keep your eyes on the sky and your ears to the truth.